Life Audio.
What is your life like now?
We have been able to go on a few trips before together.
And she was in
Mostly
bed
business.
prior, right? Like, did I hear you say that in your story? So she went from being bedridden
Totally bedridden for a year and a half.
to vacationing with her family.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Faith Over Fear podcast, where we discuss powerful truths to quiet anxiety and fear, big and small. I'm Jennifer Slattery, and I am super pumped about this episode and the hope God spoke into my soul through it. My guest understands how discouraging depression, anxiety, and issues like chronic pain can feel and learns some Holy Spirit-led solutions I know will encourage and inspire you as well. Join us after a brief message from our sponsors. You know, on Faith Over Fear, we talk a lot about healing spiritually, emotionally, and even physically. That's why I'm excited to share something that's helping so many people with pain, inflammation, and even brain health. It's called SunPowerLED. They've created a powerful light therapy device that's completely drug-free. It uses high-intensity LED light to reach deep into your tissues and joints. And it's showing real promise for things like concussions, PTSD, even Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I love that it supports the healing process God built into our bodies. Visit SunPowerLED.com and use promo code LIFE to get 10% off. That's SunPowerLED.com, promo code LIFE. SunPowerLED, bringing light to your life.
Health insurance rates are surging in America, leaving millions without affordable options. If you're sick of having paychecks eaten up by healthcare costs or dealing with mega corporations, then listen to this. Christians don't need to waste money on a broken system. That's why I want to tell you about Christian Healthcare Ministries. It's an alternative to traditional health insurance at half the cost. With CHM, fellow believers contribute monthly to help pay each other's medical bills. There's no enrollment period, so you can join anytime. And you aren't restricted to provider networks, so you choose the doctors and hospitals you want. It's that simple. CHM is not insurance. It's a ministry that puts faith into action. Feel the difference of financial support and biblical care from fellow believers. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
I'm Jennifer Slattery, and if you're one of the 20 million plus individuals who suffer with depression, or the 40 million who experience chronic anxiety, and that's in the United States alone, you know how debilitating both of those mental health challenges can be. And while both conditions are often complex with numerous contributing factors, there are steps we can take to experience increased spiritual and emotional freedom. More importantly, Jesus himself wants to walk beside you, wants you to experience thriving life, and will lead you to the tools that will best help you to do so. And in today's episode, I'm excited to introduce you to an innovative Christ follower, Tom Kerber, whose company is bringing relief to people suffering debilitating depression and anxiety, along with a host of other issues. Tom, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be on your show. Thank you so much for the invite.
Tom Kerber is the president and founder of SunPowerLED, a brilliant God-led technology that is dramatically changing lives for people, as I said, with depression and anxiety, as well as the effects of post-traumatic stress, chronic pain, chronic illness, and more. Issues that I know some of them have affected him personally, which we're going to get into. But first, a bit more about his company and the technology he and his team developed. SunPowerLED light therapy devices help people experience fuller, more fulfilling, and kingdom-impacting lives. They've seen people with chronic pain, inflammation, and many other conditions find relief, and they share a few video testimonials on their website, which I'll link in the show notes if you want to check those out. Their products provide red and near infrared light energy, and this is called photobiomodulation, or I probably said that wrong, you can correct me later, or red light therapy, which provides light energy directly into the cells to improve a variety of cellular functions. PBM has been researched for decades around the world with positive results. In fact, according to the PBM Foundation, PBM has been used in over 100 million patient treatments without, this is big, without any documented side effects. Their special design allows extra optical power with less heat for even deeper penetration of light energy. So with their products, you can reach your wellness goals much faster. They have a wide variety of light therapy products to meet your professional or individual needs. You'll want to go to their website to check all of that out. And like I said in the beginning, some of these issues have affected your life personally. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We went through an extremely stressful time with a business situation, and that stress and also our third child being born during that time was extremely stressful. And although I could handle the stress, after all that, my wife could not. And then her thyroid had failed. She ended up having hyperthyroidism. And we tried our best at the time. I've been a believer since March 1980 and trusting the Lord since then. And in this case, I felt that somehow we would get through this. But we really felt that the body is something that God designed. And so that every part of the body is important. You just don't cut off a right hand because you think you want to get rid of it. No, there's a purpose for your right hand. And the same goes with the thyroid and other parts of the body. So we were reluctant to have the thyroid burned out by radioactive iodine. And we were able to go on a separate drug so that she could have a normal life. She was able to still have her thyroid for 5 years and have a pretty normal life, outside of the fact that I was still causing a lot of stress in the background with running my business initiatives as an entrepreneur. And well, after 5 years, she couldn't handle her body wouldn't accept the drug anymore, and things went absolutely crazy. At one point, they suggested now to remove the thyroid to get rid of the hyper situation. They promised me that if they just did that, then all her problems would go away. And I had no idea that there was so much more to a problem than just removing a part of the body. And so she went through a very difficult time after the surgery as well, where she was bedridden for about a year and a half. And I looked after her and tried to run a business and tried to look after 3 kids. And I went through my own time. And I remember a couple little spots of time when I felt it's too hard for me. It's just too much. But I keep coming back to scriptures that would reminded me that Job had gone through some pretty bad things. And he said, though he slay me, yet I'll keep praising him. And that was my thoughts from scripture. And I remember one of my friends saying, they would say, how's it going or whatever. And I say, I'm going really, really difficult time. And I said, there's scripture that says God disciplines those he loves. And I'm like, I just wished he wouldn't love me this much. It was such a difficult time. So I can even remember at one point through the midst of her being bedridden, once in a while, Satan will whisper thoughts in your ear that you should not listen to. And one of them was I was driving along a back road and it was really, really heavy. And the thought came, if you just veer off the road a little bit, there's a tree for you and you'll finally be out of this. And it's neat how God caught me at that moment and said, don't, and no, I can't do this, And here I am, 30 years after that, and talking to you because I listened to the Holy Spirit. Difficult times, but God kept doing little things along the way to give me that little insight to encourage me. And so, although depression and all those things are not fun, I believe God helped helped me walk through those little spots. I only had little spots, but to see my wife going through that. And I think the biggest reason why she was also going through these periods of high anxiety and depression, because of the thyroidism can also cause that. But even when the thyroid was gone, it's, will I ever get better again? And that runs through a person's mind when they're so sick, and they can think of all the things that can go further wrong. And I
Right.
remember at one point, it was my wife decided to thought that she wasn't going to be living anymore because of her situation. Like somewhere along the line, she wouldn't make it. And she wrote me a card saying that I shouldn't wait too long before I marry another woman to when I
Wow.
find one. Boy, I tell you, when I read that one, you, that's a stab in the heart. Now, the person doesn't know how much of an impact that was, but it was tough. But God has brought us through, and very long journey. But through that long journey, now I can offer people hope to tons of people.
Yeah.
And it is so much fun to be on this side where we got people with different cognitive problems. And one in particular is a man with Parkinson's. And she said to me, Tom, you're the first time this after a few treatments, the first time my husband smiled at me in years. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
when you get somebody with autism that says in her speller, she says, I am so blessed that you're helping me. And she types it out on her little speller, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
the words are read to me,
Yeah.
that this happened. She was trying to, her mother says, do you think this is helping you? And she says, yes. And then her mother asked, well, what do you think it's helping with? What's it doing? And she says, I can think clearer. This is a 20-year-old young woman. And then her mother, and she's spelling this out, right? And, on her little speller. And the mother says, well, how would you how other people to understand what this means to you? She says, well, it would be like somebody being absolutely deaf for their whole life and finally starting to hear whispers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to circle back actually. So to when you were talking about with your wife and you were talking about your experiences, and the one thing I was thinking when you're talking about is just capacity, right? Like we have a limited amount of capacity.
Yes.
And so speaking to our listeners, for somebody who's dealing with chronic illness, and then the longer it goes on, that limits your capacity then to deal with these other stressors. And then it sounds like also your capacity was limited because I know you had your business to run and you're watching your wife really struggle. And what was the hardest? Well, first of all, so it sounds like for your wife, one of the things that was challenging was she didn't know if she was going to get better. Would you say that was the hardest part of her story, or what do you think really added to her emotional weight through that?
Yeah, I think that would be the biggest thing. And then for me, it was to hear her say things that were really tough to hear because she was in that state, and you're trying to bring her through, and nothing's going to get better. And yes, we're going to try this, and we're going to try that, and we're going to try. We went to multiple doctors, all kinds of things. And she was also on some medication for a bit. And that, in one sense, made it even worse. I know it helped some people. In her case, it made it worse. And so we decided at that point, get back off medication. Yeah, it was it was a difficult time.
I bet. And you had children at the time.
Yeah, we had 3 children, and I remember praying with them at night, and we would pray, and they would ask questions like, why isn't mommy getting better? Or why doesn't mommy?
Wow.
And all those things. And
so you both had that weight to carry also.
Yeah. And then I would pray with them and then break down in tears with them. But for them as well, it's amazing how God would allow that to still happen. I mean, I believe he could snap anything and change the situation just like that. But I can say that our children, even though they didn't have the normal period of time with their mother and other things, and father was also very much involved in the business, trying to make ends meet and all those things. So he didn't spend as much time as he would probably should have, and all those things. But God brought us through those things. And although it's been a lot of years since they were young, I now have, well, not only do I have the three children, my directly three children, but each one of them married a believing mate, which is fantastic. And then we have now 11 grandchildren. So, I mean, it's really, really neat. And with my wife being able to recover to the point where she's not totally done everything, like there's still some issues, but not anywhere near what we were dealing with back then. But now she's being a grandmother to their kids, and it's still a bit difficult because when I have to make certain business trips, it adds extra anxiety, extra pressure. She would just like me to be home all the time. I mean, what good
Yeah.
wife doesn't want her husband
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
around
yeah.
all the time?
Yeah. On Faith Over Fear, we talk a lot about healing spiritually, emotionally, and even physically. That's why I'm excited to share something that's helping so many people with pain, inflammation, and even brain health. It's called SunPowerLED. They've created a powerful light therapy device that's completely drug-free. It uses high-intensity LED light to reach deep into your tissues and joints. And it's showing real promise for things like concussions, PTSD, even Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I love that it supports the healing process God built into our bodies. Visit SunPowerLED.com and use promo code LIFE to get 10% off. That's SunPowerLED.com, promo code LIFE. SunPowerLED, bringing light to your life.
Americans have a big healthcare problem. Over 100 million U.S. citizens carry medical debt, but that's not the whole story. With health insurance, your out-of-pocket and monthly costs are way too high. You get surprise bills, denied claims, and poor customer service. That's a serious burden. As Christians, we don't have to pay for a broken system. Christian Healthcare Ministries is an alternative to health insurance at half the cost. You can enroll at any time and join a proven faith-based solution that's both reliable and affordable. CHM isn't just help, it's financial and spiritual support when you need it most. Families across the country count on CHM to step in during their hardest moments, and it works. Stand up to health insurance with a low-cost biblical solution. Join CHM today by visiting chministries.org/wellness. That's chministries.org/wellness.
You guys were in this. It sounds like for your wife, I really heard she really struggled with a sense of hopelessness and like, okay, this is just how my life is going to be going forward. Or it might even go further downhill. Like what else is going to happen that's going to be hard? What about for you? Were you ever tempted to say, okay, this is the way our life is. We've just got to figure it out. Just kind of get our head down, push forward, just deal with it is what it is type of thing. Did you ever struggle with those feelings?
Yeah, I would say yes. And I'm not one that can very easily identify my feelings.
Understood.
I bury them a lot of times. I'm not the perfect example of how everything should be done. But no, I mean, there was definitely difficult times, but God brought us through. And that's
so. Yeah, tell me how. And I actually know because we talked before our recording, and so I know how Jesus met you in. Like from what I heard, you talking in the middle of your overwhelm, in the middle of your pain. And I would love if you would share that a little with the listeners.
Yeah, so I gotta say, along the way, there's these times where you just know that God is there, reaches out and wants to tell you something and wants to still give you a vision of what could still happen. And so one of them in particular, at one point, I went to this cross that was a very tall cross that overlooks the city where I'm at. And so it's 300 feet elevated from the ground because of the hill that it's on top of. And then the cross sticks up another 60 feet. And I remember just these are in the midst of these challenges. Okay. And he still wants to encourage us. And you want to be able to know somehow he's listening. But I would go there and once in a while and just have a little time of prayer and read my Bible. It was a beautiful spot. There's next to nobody there at this location, and it was unkept as far as nobody was looking after it per se as far as the grounds. So it was pretty rough. And I remember one morning going there, and it was daylight, and I remember just hearing this voice of come over to the cross. And I thought, I'm over by the cross. No. Come to the cross. So I kind of walked over directly in amongst the bushes that were there. And it was like, kneel at the cross here. And I'm thinking, this is muddy here. It's not clean. It's not a concrete surface. And I have my good pants on, and I got to go to work. So I went and decided, okay, I'll get some leaves. I put them down at the foot of the cross, and I knelt there, and I felt God speaking to me and saying, take over the cross. And it was like overwhelmingly like that same message was like again and again, take over the cross. I had no idea what that meant. And I got up and I went on my way to my shop, which was about 5 minutes away. And the radio was off, and I just flipped on. Just before I flipped on the radio, I listened to a Christian radio station, and I thought, okay, Chuck Swindoll's on right now. What would he have to? God, what would you have to say to me? Kind of really flippantly. And I flipped on the radio, and Chuck Swindoll was really, really serious. You could hear it in the tone of his voice. And he said, submission begins at the foot of the cross. Now, what are the odds of hearing that start at the cross and then not even 5 minutes later hearing submission begins at the foot of the cross? And it wasn't till I couldn't figure that one out, what it meant necessarily. I thought I was in radio. I thought it'd be a great transmitter site because it was so high elevated. Great FM radio station. I thought, what would that mean? But a week later, I went and it was still early morning, so it was still dark. And I looked, and half of the bulbs were out on the cross. And I thought, this can't be. And I crawled up that cross, first times without a safety harness, pretty high in the air, and replaced all the bulbs. And eventually, a number of years later, the group that looked after the cross said, you've been looking after this cross and you're in the LED business. Can you do something with LEDs for the cross? And I ended up putting LEDs on it. So the cross got brighter when I first started working with it and nicely illuminated. And then absolutely stunningly that you could see it from a good 10 miles away as to how bright it was.
Nice.
So just the way that there's different times that he drops a little message.
Right.
That you know.
So I want to go back to you meeting at the cross. And the one thing I heard in your telling of that, you kept going back. You persevered, and he didn't meet you there with that special word, that solution for your, kind of what I'm hearing is the steps towards where you are now and towards where your wife is now and where your company and technology is now. He didn't download that your first meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just bits along the way. And the funny part, one thing my wife said to me is she says, you have perseverance like no other. And the thing was, she said she thought of me as one of those punching bags that somebody would come along and punch the top and then go over and come back upright again. And I got punched so many times in business along the way and things like that. And it's like, persevere. God, help me through this. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. It's near impossible or impossible. And somehow he provided a way to get through.
Yeah. Which I think that's just a lesson for us all, those who are dealing with depression with anxiety, with chronic pain, chronic illness. I love hearing the hope on the other side. I'm curious, how did that whole experience impact where you are now, the depth of your relationship with him and the trust you have in him?
Well, I would say all the way along, it's a faith builder. Each time you have these incidences where you see that God's changing your circumstances, even if you don't like it necessarily. Just like I missed a flight once, and I was at the door when they closed the door, basically for the gate, and I was like, first minute normal reaction, this is
Panic, yeah.
terrible, like, when am I going to fly out and everything like that. And then I thought 2 minutes later, it's like, okay, Lord, why did you allow this why did I not get here on time? There's a series of things could have been different. And then I would wait for 3 hours later, 4 hours later, before I got a flight out. And when I got on that flight, I sat beside a woman because they reorganized her seats and everything. And she was called retinopathy, juvenile retinopathy. So she was going blind because of retinopathy. And guess what we've been able to help with our light technology?
Nice.
Retinopathy.
Nice.
And
nice.
just coming off of thinking about this. So he can organize our life along the way, and it isn't always nice.
But he always
there's
has
an
good
outcome.
in mind. Yes, yes. Well, and I love too how just hearing your story, he can use what is painful in our stories as a catalyst for how he wants to use us to impact someone else's. So I loved hearing that. I would love to know, you kind of shared a little that your wife has experienced significant relief since that really hard time. And so what is life like for your family? And the reason I'm asking is for the listeners right now who are listening, and maybe they're like, you know what, I don't even know if I have enough hope to hope. I don't know if I have enough courage to hope, right? So give a little vision. So you went from this where your wife is like, you know what, I may not make it, and you're both feeling overwhelmed and circumstances feel really dark and really heavy. What is your family life like? Minus the fact that your wife would love you home more often. Maybe if she would make you rhubarb pie. I like that works with my husband. But so what is your life like now?
We have been able to go on a few trips before together.
And she was in bed
business.
Prior, right? Like, did I hear you say that in your story? So she went from being bedridden,
totally bedridden for a year and a half,
to vacationing with her family.
Yeah. And we've been able to do that. And she's also been able to help me get ready for trips. So all the things that are required, and look after a house, good cook, and all these things. And we've been able to even do a little bit of this together, sometimes go out and a show. If you ever at a show of some kind, it can be very stressful. And she was able to do really, really nice to work together that way. But
nice. And so what has it been like for your load? So allowing you to live out your godly calling, knowing that she's doing better, has that kind of lifted the weight?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, very much so. But now he's it's also a period of time where I got to say, business life financially been a very, very difficult time where most of my life, I've been an entrepreneur now for all of my life. So we're talking over 45 years of electronic design, and that only to have this last year come together so well. I was so much in debt. That was another problem. There was no extra money anywhere.
Because you so believed in this product that you're like, I'm sucking every penny. Is that?
Oh, yeah. And that would be obviously a complaint that my wife would have is, she would, like, I would say probably a year and a half ago, she would have said something along the lines of, can't you get a regular job? Well, I knew that even if I could get a regular job, if somebody would hire me, that I'd have to take the next 40 years to dig out of, or 30 years to dig out of the debt that I was in. And in 1 year, I've gone from being in that extreme debt position wherever I used multiple credit cards, many credit cards to buy steal from Peter to pay Paul to keep Jim happy. Like it was like, I had business loans. I had all sorts of things. And in 1 year, to have the last year to be an overnight success. So it's like we've been able to see so many people being helped, and in the process, we've been able to turn ourselves totally around financially. So all these things have
Praise
happened.
God.
It's
Praise
been
God.
amazing. Yeah.
And that goes back to the perseverance piece that you referenced. And so hopefully our listeners can really pick up on that. But I'm also wondering, how has your experience with your wife, and I also know you've, from previous conversations with you, you've experienced pain. And so all of those things, how has pain and depression and anxiety how it has impacted your family and your life? How has that impacted your business? Like, do you feel like you have a greater passion for it, knowing what it's like to be someone who suffers?
Yeah. So we mentioned about the depression and anxiety, but in my situation, I fell off a ladder, second floor height, and landed on concrete.
Ouch.
And I didn't break anything, but I injured my back to the point where every year, 2 years, I would bend over, pick up a paper clip or something, and all of a sudden this screaming back pain would just shoot up through my back. And it would be months, like 4 or 5 months of this kind of thing. And I do everything possible. I even tried drugs and you name it. And then to use my light, that's how I learned about the light technology getting rid of pain. I wouldn't have believed that light could do anything on its own, but I tried this light that I made for another purpose, and I tried it for cancer treatment actually. But I thought I just tried the light on my back, and I went like screaming 8 down to a 3 in 20
Nice.
minutes. So I thought,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, the world is going to want
Yes.
to have
Yes.
this.
Yes.
So now, instead of months, when I have some kind of incident, my back is not perfect. So if I ever have an incident like this, instead of now months, it's like a few days. And within a week, I'm moving around pretty good. And maybe 2 weeks, almost back to normal. So that's how that impacted me by going through that. But now I know, like, as I went through this all, I was helping other people, so I could see the relief on their faces from significant pain or other issues from this technology.
Yeah. Well, I do have to tell you, so when I learned about your product, I was actually happened to be with my extended family, and one person I really care about was in pain just from being there, the activity level and wanting to be present with us and wanting to, and I'm like, okay, let me tell you about this. And I pulled up your website on my phone and I showed her. And so when your loved ones are in pain and you know there's a possible solution, it is very exciting. It's very hope giving. And so now let's shift. We all have something, I will say. We all have something: pain, depression, anxiety, illness. Go to a site, and there's a lot of information there. Give yourself time, read through it, watch the testimonial video so you can kind of understand it. And something that really hit me, because I think if all of Christ followers, if we are at our best and living out our unique calling and living out our mission, I think we can shatter this world's darkness with the light of Christ. My listeners know, at least those who follow me on social media and on my website, it just so happens, actually, Tom, God's orchestrating you being here, I will say, and why I was open to having you on, because I'm very protective of this space, because I'm very protective of my listeners. And I had shared how I'm a national speaker, and last fall it was a whirlwind trip, and traveling tends to escalate my pain, and it will be cumulative. And so I was really sad because I thought I wasn't going to be able to speak anymore. And so I'm kind of wrestling with God. And I said, and my husband and I both made the decision, I can't speak anymore. It's too much. It's too hard. And so I'd find other outlets. But then about a month later, I sensed God saying to me, when I was thinking about I was kind of thinking through some opportunities, and my brain is playing this narrative, well, I can't speak anymore. Right. And God clearly said to me, don't impose today's pain on tomorrow. And then like a week or two later, Tommy, who you know who Tommy is, our listeners don't, but somebody on the Life Audio team emailed me your information. And so I'm also thinking those who are saying, you know what, I'm bedridden right now. I would love to teach a Bible study, but I don't think I can. Or I'm in so much pain. I would love to go travel and work VBS this summer and I can't. So I'm thinking too of the kingdom impact, and God's going to do what God's going to. We're not saying that this is like a magic, everybody's going to be solved of every ailment you ever had. But if he's providing a tool that helps us live more optimally, then that also enables us as Christ followers to live out our unique call in our world, which then causes the gospel. So that's what I'm thinking too when I hear about your product.
And when people go through pain, they end up and they come out through the other side. They understand what it feels like. Like you got somebody coming up to you, which my wife had lots of times. It's all in your head. And oh my gosh, what a hurtful thing to say.
Or just pray it away. Just pray it away or think it away. Yeah.
Yeah. To be able to make an impact this way is fantastic. And I agree with you. These people that would be helped in their own situation, now they have their passion is for the people that they were.
Right. Yeah, I would like us to end our conversation actually with, I watched a testimonial of a man. He was just so excited because he went from comatose really to thriving life. So if you could just briefly share his story.
This was a fellow that was a war vet, and he ended up with multiple concussions from traumatic brain injury. And from all that, what happens is their brain is affected significantly. And so he was super high anxiety and depression, and he's battling with it and doing everything he could to cover his pain. And so addiction to opiates, like being on high opiates, being on all sorts of drugs, you name it, and different mood altering drugs and all that. And to still have this depression, I don't want to get out of bed, I'd rather somebody take my life, to where after even within a month, he had already improved so dramatically. And then I had him on a few months later, and he's like on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel as well as a podcast. And so I had him on, and he's like, I call this thing my happy helmet. Bleep, bleep, bleep. He says, you wouldn't believe what it does. Bleep, bleep, bleep. And he's totally off all medication. The depression is gone. The anxiety is gone. And he's like, it's supercharged. He says even he had dealing with ADHD and not being able to focus. And he says to be able to focus again. So yeah, beautiful stuff.
Well, and especially if he's not a believer, and now does he know that you, like, God helped you with this technology and is kind of driving the bus here?
Oh yeah. Usually what God's opened up to do for us to be able to do is we ask everyone who usually uses our technology, when they ask questions, we say, can we pray? Are you okay if we have a quick prayer with you? And very few times have we ever had anybody say, no, I'd rather not, or whatever reason. It's happened a couple times, but out of the, I don't know, thousands of times we've been able to pray with people, and they receive such hope from the prayer. Not that they're healed instantly, but just that God would bring them through this. And it's so that's the door that was really opened for me to share. And so people, I drop little droplets,
seeds,
some salt, some seeds and some droplets, and believing that there's a God that created us beautifully. And we do have some challenges with these bodies, but he helps us to heal, and the body can't heal itself. That's the other cool thing. A lot of times the body can go back to where it needs to be, but it needs to have the right tools to get there. We just got one of those tools.
I love it. I love it. Well, I love that you are honoring him through it and pointing people to him. So now, where can listeners learn more about your project? So we will actually share links, like I said, in the show notes, but where would you direct them? What is like the first thing, like they're just starting? Okay, what would you say? Okay, I want you go to this page. This will kind of answer or make it more easier for you to understand.
Right. So there's the area of testimonies. You can look on our website, www.sunpowerled.com. People, there's a tab there for testimonies. So you can see some of the other people that have been affected. We also have in past videos, there's over 100 videos of podcasts that I've done over the last 2.5 years. And these would be podcasts that have people on that have suffered from different things. We do have doctors and researchers and scientists and you name it on our program. So that's one thing. If some people are kind of like, oh, come on, how's this possible? Show me the beef. Where's the beef kind of thing. So yes, we have a research tab on our thing, and there's tons of information on the research tab, including we mentioned about the cognitive issues that people can improve upon. Well, we have a study there that shows that was done at one of the universities that these were people with severely addicted to opiates, and they had severe depression and anxiety and other problems. And the group, there was about 50 people they started with. In the end, there was a little less people, but the group that got treated with the light significantly improved in their outlook on life, reduced depression, reduced anxiety. Their cravings for opiates was far less.
Praise God.
And that was not a bunch of treatments in, everyday treatments. This was 2 3-minute treatments a week over 2 months.
Okay.
2 3-minute treatments.
Wow. This has been a really encouraging, really inspiring on numerous levels. I'm, as somebody who myself has chronic pain and deals with anxiety, that it's encouraging in that aspect. It's encouraging hearing your story and hearing God's heart for our freedom. And it's also encouraging just to hear how God has led you in your journey with this business and to keep it going and keep it thriving and growing and with the studies and all of that. So that's really awesome. To our listeners, you'll want to check out all of his links, all the stuff in the show notes. And I just encourage you to keep pushing forward because Christ wants us to thrive. He said, I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. And what he wants, he has the power to fulfill. So thank you so much, Tom.
Yeah. And we'll be waiting to see your testimony.
Awesome. Yes. I'm amazed at the brilliance and empathy of Christ and all the tools he provides to help us thrive and experience more of the abundant or flourishing life he promised us. Make sure to visit SunPowerLED.com to read the exciting research they've conducted and amazing results they're seeing through their product. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast. Then you won't miss a single episode. Make sure to rate it and review it. That encourages me and Carol, is an excellent way for you to share honest feedback, requests, or suggestions, and helps others find our content. Until next time, may you live as one who truly has been set free.
At Thrivent, planning your finances is bigger than money. It's a way to support the people, causes, and community you love. Because helping you put your faith into action is at the heart of what we do. Thrivent, where money means more. Connect with us at Thrivent.com.